lot of my viewers are types other than ISTP, so I want to address an issue that I see happen quite often on like ISTP online forums. Pretty much on a regular basis, I'll see people join the group and immediately just ask a question like, do ISTPs have trouble expressing their feelings? Or how do you know if an ISTP is interested in you? Or sometimes it'll be just a really vague question like, hi ISTPs, I'm an ENTP, tell me about yourselves. And then sometimes they'll join the forum and post like this really long story, like some incident that happened with some ISTP. They'll just go on, and they won't even ask a real question. It'll just be like, what's the deal? Or, am I crazy? And then of course there's the popular, hi ISTPs, what do you think of INFPs? Or what do you think of ENTJs? Or what do you think of ISFJs? Okay, so here's the thing. Don't do that. I mean, first of all, there's the fact that ISTPs are pretty much sick of those kinds of questions being asked all the time. But, you know, for your sake, it's not even going to be helpful. Because, like, usually what happens is the ISTPs, you know, who are sick of those kinds of questions, will just give a really sarcastic response. You know, most of the ISTPs are there just to hang out with other ISTPs and relate to other ISTPs, and so they're going to be more interested in entertaining each other with their answers to this newcomer than actually helping the newcomer. But you know, even if you do find an ISTP on there who does genuinely want to help you, their answer is probably not even going to be that helpful to you. Now, here's why. First of all, the ISTP is not going to really understand your point of view, you know, especially if you're an NF, you know, like an ENFP or an INFP or INFJ. Yeah, they don't really know where your type is coming from, and so they're just gonna tell, you know, like, I'm an ISTP and this is what I prefer. You know, the ISTP is gonna be like, this is how I would handle the situation, and well, chances are it's gonna suck for you. And the other problem is just communication differences between you and the ISTP. You know, you try to describe your situation to an ISTP, the ISTP is going to misunderstand where you're coming from, and then the ISTP gives his or her feedback, and you'll probably interpret it the wrong way because you're going into it with a mindset, the ISTP is going into it with a certain mindset, and so despite everyone's best intentions, things are just not going to be communicated properly, and then everyone gets frustrated. So I'll give an example. One time an ENFJ joined the ISTP forum on Facebook, and the question she asked was, do ISTPs have trouble noticing things around them? And of course, all the ISTPs, including me, were like, what are you talking about? We have SE, we're totally aware of our environment. We can walk down and again, notice, like, prevent from running into things. And so as we gradually learned, the ENFP's problem was that her husband doesn't notice when she needs certain things from him. Like if she's bringing groceries in from the car, he won't notice that she needs help carrying the groceries. And then the ISTPs figured out that the issue was that she didn't ask her husband to help her. And then, you know, the ENFJ just still got frustrated because it's like she doesn't feel like she has to ask something like that, and you know, it just, I mean, I don't even know if she even got anything out of it. But anyway, the point is that ENFJ would have probably been better off asking other ENFJs, or at least other NFs, for help dealing with her ISTP husband, because first of all, the problem would have been communicated properly. The other NFs would have understood what her problem was, and they would have given her a solution that would be beneficial to an ENFJ. So I actually think that for other types, it's actually more beneficial to ask people of your type about ISTPs than to ask actual ISTPs, which sounds a bit counterintuitive, but just from what I've seen, I think that's true. But you know what? First things first, do your homework. Read up on ISTPs. There's plenty of information online, and there have been books published that can tell you about ISTPs. Now, this is David Kearsley's Please Understand Me Too. And you might recall the last time I talked about this book, I had some issues with the way Kearsley portrayed ISTPs, and I still do, but mainly because it would confuse newly typed ISTPs trying to understand their own type. But I think for other types, it is actually a bit helpful, especially the sections like in the second half of the book, where it talks about helpmates, mating. There's a whole chapter on parenting. There's a chapter on leadership, which can help dealing with ISTPs in the workplace. So a book like this, or there are plenty of other books out there that you can read up and try to understand the differences between your type and ISTPs. Now, I personally would rather deal with individuals rather than categories of people. And so if I'm having a problem with a particular person, I'm more likely to address that specific problem than try to understand if it's a type-related thing. It's probably another reason ISTPs aren't going to be helpful in that regard, because they're not even going to look at your problem as an ISTP problem. They're just going to try to go in and solve that problem. But I know everyone's different, and if you're going to insist on trying to understand ISTPs in general, then I think this is the way you want to go, instead of asking ISTPs to tell you about themselves. So yeah, if you could just stop asking those kinds of questions on the ISTP forums, that would be great. Who does genuinely, and so, things are just not going to be whatever, like that. And so things are just not going to be things are just not going to be communicated properly, and then everyone's just frustrated.